study session.
Yeah, it's gonna really make that study session a lot longer too then.
Well,
That's
or,
okay.
or we don't have the study session,
Yeah.
and we have a business meeting instead. It's a
It's
price.
possible, it's just a DOT,
Do the DOT.
Oh, that's right.
second open house,
Yeah,
the
that's,
DOT
but can't we,
session, so,
can't we do that and,
thank you.
can't we still do that and, but then go into a business meeting rather than a, I mean, we still have their input regardless. I mean, I think unless there's,
We can do business.
unless there's something urgent, you know, in the study session that we really need to talk, I would say that's the consequence. If they don't show up, that's the consequence.
Well, it's an update from DOT is all, you know, the stuff that was talked about, we can do that at the end of a regular meeting.
Yeah, we could really, we could
Some of this has to get on though.
Be done in a half hour.
Consent, I mean, you gotta get bills paid, permits.
At least we have this.
Have what? Yeah, yeah.
Zoning.
Slide right over here, they won't know the
Yeah.
difference.
Get paid by the airport,
Or we can call a special meeting.
local option sales tax, that's gotta get going. You know, just.
Well, would it be better to have a special meeting?
I don't know.
Most of the stuff.
Okay.
A lot of stuff Monday.
We get to go watch the sunset, huh?
Right. You know, but you know, it does appear that there's some selection.
Oh, I kind of wondered if that
of
would.
what meetings you show up at, and that's just not right. I mean, this isn't the Congress, you know, I mean, this is,
This was something.
Going to a new security vendor.
Keen on even discussing it necessarily, except
just
that
take it off, just take it off, won't be on there.
it was on.
Well, I
Put it
wouldn't-
on again.
No, exactly. What
Should,
happened,
Plenty of lead time.
what happened?
No,
there?
we're changing security firm. I manage. Please get this rumor.
No kidding, I will. Order the Waverly City Council for June 20th, 2016. Tonight, we lack a quorum, so we're going to be doing discussion items only. And I would suggest, City Administrator, that the agenda items, we have a lot that has to pass tonight, but we could go to the study session if council that's here would approve that.
Yes, sir. I think there's a lot of items that are somewhat time sensitive, from permits to bills to be paid to some of the zoning issues that probably definitely has to be discussed the next week then. If council's willing to place those on the study session agenda and go into study session after that, I think that would be helpful because, again, some of these, they are time sensitive. And we can determine what those are and are not. Others may not be, but again, the ones that are, I think, would definitely need to be put on that agenda, and the others that are not time sensitive can maybe go to the July 11th meeting if that's permissible as well.
Okay.
That's the troublesome part here, that with the 4th of July weekend, we don't have a meeting the first Monday, so it really pushes things out. So I would be in support of rolling almost the whole agenda that we don't discuss. And even if we discuss it tonight, it's, given some of the opinions of the council members that are missing, I think it's going to get rehashed anyhow, so.
Well, that's very frustrating because, first of all, in my opinion, we shouldn't be hearing about those opinions as a group. That should be happening here, not via email messages. And second of all, those of us who are here, now we're in a position of being here tonight, and we're going to have a longer meeting the next time we meet. And I don't appreciate that for one.
What I would suggest, Dan, maybe is that we discuss the discussion items, and that will be it.
Right, and I would say if they come up again, that's fine, but if it's stuff we've repeated here, I hope we will not entertain a lot of repeat conversation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Any thoughts, Mike, before we go on? We need the three weigh in.
It does raise the interesting question. Is it permissible for three members who are not a quorum to agree to move items to the study session?
Yes.
We can do
Consensus.
that. We can do.
Since it only takes one or two to put an item on the agenda,
Yeah,
I think
that
three
would
can
be-
certainly do that.
Between the mayor and the administrator could do it too.
All right.
Wonderful to have our guest council person, Vern Bile, back for number 2.
Number 2.
And so any comments that you have as we lead into this wonderful evening?
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good to have you with us again. For everyone who's watching, guest council people have full voice. No vote, but full voice. At this time, I would entertain any comments on any items not on tonight's agenda. Or any comments?
Well, so does that mean, I guess I'm going to ask, because I see some people here, does that mean since we know some agenda items are not really on the agenda, that those people may speak to those now if they're here to speak to those?
Very good. Very wise. Okay.
Should I tell the people that's recording the meeting that they can go home? And is Carla taking minutes at all?
I will take notes. And I think that's
It's not a
a good
meeting.
idea to have them. We're still going to pay them for a minimum of 2 hours for video. Anyway.
We have a precedence of being able to meet without, the last time we lacked a quorum for hour. Yeah, and we continue to meet as a council without making decisions. We can still function, but we can't make any decisions. You're saying it's not a meeting.
Can't take actions.
Can't take
I'm
action.
I'm just wondering, should we let the Warburg people go, the production people go?
I missed the point.
You know, they may have other things to do tonight.
No, I think I would like to keep them because I think the discussions, not only the comments from the public, but the discussions we're going to have are of interest to the public.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Darwin Ritkers, one of the co-chairs with Waverly Heritage Days, and we'd like to just give you a little bit of an update where we're at with just less than a month to go for Heritage Days. With me also, here we are,
Which side?
Dave Timmerman, part of our committee. We got a couple other committee members back here. Something that we want to show you tonight is something we did differently for Heritage Days. Normally we put out a little brochure. We've actually made up a full booklet, and we have a copy for everyone. We'd like you to take a look at that. That's kind of how we've promoted Heritage Days this year throughout the entire Cedar Valley, the state of Iowa, and actually outside of Iowa. And with this booklet, it does not contain everything that we're going to do that weekend, because actually we had a printing deadline. But it gives the majority of our groups we're having, some of the events. It lists some of the new events and so forth. It just brings a little better picture, I think, of the organization and what we're trying to strive for. Just a couple of points. Last year was one of the largest Heritage Days on record, and we anticipate this one to be even much bigger. We have literally thousands of followers on Facebook that are literally checking us out every day. We've had contact with our car show, the parades, our bands in at least 3 different states, individuals wanting to come. Something that I was real pleased about after checking today are actually our downtown hotel is full for that weekend. 80% is Heritage Day people coming in. I thought that was great. In checking with some of the other hotels, they are also now taking reservations for that weekend's event. So we really are at an unknown as to just how many people we're going to draw, and we are excited for that. We are planning on our parade to continue to be that same route that we've always had. We're having a lot of people inquire about that. I have a group from Minnesota that contacted me 2 weeks ago asking if they could participate in our parade. They have apparently some vintage vehicles and so forth that they want to display. I was contacted by a group from Sioux Falls, South Dakota that also wants to participate in the weekend. We'll have our regular food vendors, and we've added more food vendors. We should have a selection of over 30 items this year. We are also something we've done for several years, and I just wanted to bring this to the point, our Hall of Fame we've had every year, and this year we have nominated the Cedar Valley Hospice, our Waverly office, as one of the recipients. Also, downtown business, Love and Lace. And then our last but certainly not least will be the Draft Horse Journal, a company that's been in town here for many years. A lot of people aren't even aware of what they do, but they publish a worldwide draft horse magazine that's all based right out of Waverly here that features those animals from all over the world. And so we are real glad that they have accepted and will participate in our event there. Our Grand Marshal for the parade this year will be John and Judy Johnston of Johnston's Financial Group. They were excited about being nominated, gratefully accepted that. And really the only other things I really wanted to mention is our Facebook page. We do have a video out on that to promote Heritage Days. It's kind of, it's about 45 seconds long, 50 seconds long. So if you have an opportunity to check that, I know a couple of council members have already done that and actually have shared it with us or with their friends. We literally have made contact with over 7,000 different followers on Facebook, and we have thousands of people that have responded back literally every day. Today, I think we had another 10 or 12 people that made some sort of a comment on one of the events. But I'm open to any questions if you would have, and I appreciate being able just to kind of give you a little bit of an update.
That was wonderful. Reminds me of our identity. Waverly, a college river town with a rich heritage, and you're helping us to celebrate that heritage. It's exactly who we are, and it's great to hear the report. Any questions from the council?
Obviously, you don't know how many are going to come this year. Do you know how many we had last year at Heritage Days?
I actually had part of our security with clickers that went to every single event, and the total that we had was 12,083 people.
I was going to suggest with the theme that you're using, there should be hot air balloons and airplanes, I think.
Haven't confirmed it, but I'm working on both.
And we believe you. Yeah, it grows every year. It's a lot of momentum.
We do have a great committee and that have stepped up and taken their assignments seriously, and it's made a big difference. We've taken a total different approach on marketing. We have sponsors out of the Cedar Valley now, which in past it's always been just us here in Waverly doing it, and we are looking outside of that, and we have businesses that have responded and said that after looking at Facebook and hearing us giving little presentations that they were more than happy. And then when I kind of put in there, you take thousands from Waverly, you could give us a little bit back. And I'm not shy to be able to say that. But we have gotten good response that way.
I think it's great the group that you put together last year has really kind of turned things around and added the family fun part of it, and it's great to see that you're building on last year's success.
And we really have expanded this year in that area also. I think families are really going to enjoy their Saturday there. I should mention that Ron back here is wearing one of our shirts that we have. We have the same thing in a bright orange that we have been selling. Our area businesses have been doing that for us, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do those sort of things. And like this brochure here, I think you'll see those in some of the area restaurants at their table for a little reading material between now and then. So we're trying to get the word out any way we can.
If anybody's interested in helping volunteer to help,
We are getting people wanting to volunteer, but that's always an area that we can take more. And actually, we're probably a dozen people short at this point. And anyone wanting to volunteer can merely go to Facebook and just message us. That's one thing I'm really proud of. In the entire year, our average response time on Facebook, 24 hours a day, is 3 minutes. We try to get back to people just as quickly as we can. And there's 3 of us that monitor that all the time. So usually you'll hear from somebody right away. But if you want to volunteer, that's the best way to do it. Just give us a message and tell us where you'd like to fit in, and we'll oblige them. Thanks for asking about that. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank Carla, she kind of prompted me here.
Okay.
Okay, well, we
Is
thank you.
the volunteer fire department doing the fireworks again this year?
I'm sorry.
The volunteer fire department doing the fireworks?
Yes, the fire department will be doing the fireworks. The fireworks show itself will be larger this year. It'll be probably as large as we've ever had. And that was one of our goals 3 years ago when we were probably at our low, to try to build that back up and make it a huge event. And we will be doing that this year.
Super,
Thank you
super.
again.
Yeah, well, thank you. Other,
Just excuse me 1 minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have extras that I'm just going to leave at the table here if anybody wants and so forth. They'd be available.
good. Other comments by the public on any items that are not on tonight's agenda? And as Councilman said, if you're here for a voting item, since we won't be able to entertain that, you may speak on your opinion on that as well at this time. Okay, we thank the Heritage Days Committee and the public. We will not be able to do consent calendar. Regular business item number 1 is the council review of the Waverly Utilities audit for the year 2015.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff. Thank you for allowing us to present our 2015 audit findings. This evening, my name is Vicki Hall. I'm with Waverly Utilities. First, I'd like to mention that our audit went very well. There was no minor or material adjustments needed on our audit. Also, there was no material weaknesses, and that's in our internal controls for the second year in a row, which is quite an accomplishment for a utility our size. I'd like to congratulate our staff for doing such a great job with internal controls and pitching in. So, next I'd like to mention Iowa Code 38810. This is about municipal telecommunication utilities must prepare and maintain records which record a full cost accounting of providing telecommunication services. What this basically means is that you must have a separate set of books for a telecommunications utility versus an electric utility. And our auditors confirmed this financial separation of these two distinct utilities. And if you look at the audit, you'll notice that they're in two separate columns. So we wanted you to know that. As you probably are aware, in 2015, GASB 68 affected a lot of state and local governments. This ruling pushes IPER's liabilities from the state level down to the local level. It's a non-cash liability, which means that we don't have to pay, but GASB is requiring that we keep this $1.4 million liability on our books. So those are kind of the things that affected our audit this year. We handed out a few pages, and I think it's in your agenda manager to summarize the Waverly Utilities year. We focused on the electric utility because the communications utility isn't in operations yet. We're almost there. The first page is a comparison from 2015 to 2014. Our second page is comparing 2015 to 10 years ago. The third page is showing the trend of purchase power and transmission costs over the years. And the last page is showing purchase power and what general operating expenses have done over the years. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, obviously, studying the graphs, one wants to ask, can you explain what drives the cost of energy? It's going up. It looks like it's going up steeply now. Am I reading?
Daryl's probably a better person to explain that.
Daryl Wenzel with Waverly Utilities. Great question, Mike. And as you might be aware, that Waverly Utility owns portions of two coal plants. One sits in Muscatine, it's Louisa Generating Station, and another one sits over in Council Bluffs, Walter Scott 4 Energy Center. So as owners in those coal plants, we're also responsible to help pay capital improvements to clean up the exhaust out of those coal plants. So with all the EPA rulings over the last 7 or 8 years, there's been a tremendous spike in capital cost to clean up those coal plants. In addition, we sell that energy back onto the market, which is a new federal MISO market. And what we're seeing is, with all the subsidies of wind and solar and other renewables getting put into the market and the way it's playing out, we're getting less for our coal sales in the market. In fact, there's been excess energy, so we're not even selling some of that energy that we have in those coal plants. So it brings money or revenue back to us to offset our cost to market participants. So it's a fluctuation of that. You'll see an interesting graph where shows where Mid-American joined MISO in 2009. And you can see what happened to our wholesale costs after that transaction. MISO is comprised of mainly generation and transmission owners in a certain geographical area called Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. So the stakeholders got together and said, let's combine all of our transmission, form a federal market under FERC control, and then all the ratepayers in that section are subject to the market controls. So you may ask yourself, after when the MISO market started in 2005, who's getting all that money? The transmission owners, the lower line, which you see in the green and the purple, transmission owners are getting about twice what they used to get before the federal market. And you can see the blue line, and that's generation or energy sales. So owners of large generation stations are making surplus energy in the market. Also, there are speculators in the MISO market, and speculators are making money on whether the price of energy goes up and down. And there's also congestion costs on the transmission system. If you're stuck behind a congestion spot, you're going to pay a lot more money. And the theory is that excess money will drive new generation to fix the congestion. So it's not working quite right, but a lot of G&Ts are making a lot more money. And a G&T is a generation and transmission owner. So on that graph alone kind of tells you that for years, decades, Waverly paid about $1.5 million for electricity. Since about 2004, it's gone from $1.5 million to last year at right about $10 million. It's a severe incline in energy costs. So we're looking at our investment in coal. We know the EPA wants coal to go away. When you buy a coal plant, its life's about 40 years, so you go out with 30 or 40-year bonds to pay for that coal plant. So changing midstream on a coal plant purchase is pretty tough to do. We still have liability on our 10 megawatts of coal. And we'll be paying that for, I don't know the exact number of years, but we're still paying off the coal plant. So we can look at new natural gas. Natural gas driving the market prices down because of fracking. So natural gas generators are putting energy into the market at a very low rate. But my concern with natural gas is we know it's very volatile. One hurricane in Louisiana caused it to go from $3 cubic foot to over 15, or a decatherm is what it was called, a decatherm. That's a huge spike. So back in 2005, one weather event caused natural gas prices to go through the roof. There's solar. That's big now. Solar costs are coming down. Everybody's probably read about the Cedar Falls Utilities and their community solar garden. And as an entity, we're looking into the possibility of that here in Waverly. We think there'd be some very interested parties in that. And what we like what Cedar Falls did is that it does not cost the ratepayers that do not participate. So it's being fully funded by those that want to fund that portion. And it's not a moneymaker. Those people didn't sign up for solar to make money on that. They do get their money back over about a 18 to 20 year period, but they're not expecting huge return in the serious reduction in their energy costs. They're just doing it to supply green energy to the grid. So the board is going to go into a strategic session here in September. We're going to talk about these things and see what kind of strategy path they want to lay out for future alternative energy routes. We do have, for a system our size, we have a lot of renewables. With the 3 windmills, I think they put out 900 kW each. Pretty good sized windmills for a small community. We've got a small bit of solar there at the shop with you can see them rotating. It's interesting if you drive by late in the afternoon, they're pointed to the east, right at the white building where the sun's hitting the white building. Those trackers will pick it up and catch the sun bouncing off the white building. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's kind of neat. So, and then of course we have the small hydro that we've been maintaining. It's kind of a miracle we can keep those running, but our production guys and energy guys do a great job keeping those really, really old hydros churning over. And if you guys ever want to see those, you should contact me. We'll line up a little tour. It's kind of neat to see the old mechanical stuff working on that. So, long answer to your short question.
I figured it was complicated.
We did include that second 2005 comparison to 2015. And it really shows how things have changed. And again, the MISO market opened, I believe it was in May of 2006, or maybe it was 2005, and that's when the federal FERC market open. The other graphs just kind of show what happened. I think the graph with the blue and the orange line, and the orange line is red line. Red line shows what Waverly Utilities operating costs have done. And I think utilities have done a great job saying, we got to hold the line on operating costs. It's the blue line, which is purchase power costs, that has driven the rate increases here. So we'll continue to hold that red line as low as we can. That's the things we can control.
So is it fair to say that other utilities in the state and elsewhere are experiencing similar history with costs going up the way we see them here?
Yes, that's a fair statement to say. And another part of that is to see where they're at in their asset base. You know, they just finished paying off coal plants. Did they just build a new gas-fired plant? What's their debt load cycle? You have to add all those factors into the equation to see what their rates are doing. Are they a big market seller, so that they're receiving revenues? Are they a big market transmission player, so they're receiving, you know, nice transmission revenues back? In the MISO market, they're guaranteed a rate of return on any new transmission they put in. So if you build a new transmission line, you're guaranteed 12 point something. It was 13.8 when they first came out. They thought that was a little high, so they just recently lowered that, but you're guaranteed, Mike, is it 12 or 11.8? So if you invest $1 billion in transmission, you're guaranteed 11% return. So they've been building transmission like crazy, which is good for the country. It's the federal government's way of getting new transmission built to serve the country. So thus our transmission costs have doubled. So it's not all doom and gloom, but wholesale powers look like they've held pretty steady this year. So we're pretty happy with that. We may have plateaued. The Clean Power Plan has been put on hold with the Supreme Court situation. If the Clean Power Plan does not go through, then we don't have to worry about a future carbon tax. If the Clean Power Plan gets implemented, we would probably see a carbon tax. It's been estimated that it may cost consumers 2 cents a kilowatt hour for a carbon tax. So that's yet to be seen, but those are things that make me a little nervous. We're trying to hold rates as low as we can, and we have government intervention that could actually drive the rates up. But it's a trade-off between cleaner environment and your electricity use. So we'll see how that plays out.
Still reasonable rates from my perspective, so we thank you for the reasonable rates that are a little higher.
Thank you. As that study showed last year, we're right in the middle. There's those that are below us, and there's those that are higher than we are. So,
Coming back to the audit just a minute, I don't have a question, but I do want to do three things. First, congratulate you for second year in a row with no findings. I mean, that is remarkable. Almost every organization that I've been familiar with has some minor findings, very difficult to accomplish. And I think what that reflects is excellence in operational management and in operational work that's going on in Waverly Utilities. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was just that I know firsthand how much work putting together an audit is. So thank you for a lot of good work there as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
thanks for pointing that out, Edith, because it does a lot of credit goes to Vicki, because we started a new telecom utility. We had to set up the entire chart of accounts and inventory process and tracking process, and they pulled it off, and they've done a great job.
One more quick question. Are we on track to get our broadband project launched on schedule, do you think?
I was hoping somebody would ask that question. We're exactly on target. We will start hooking up live customers on July 1st. We hit our April 1st deadline to get test customers going. Right now there's 40 test customers. There's 4 zones that we separated the town up into zones. We've got 40 customers out there testing the product right now. And we've made a lot of progress in the last 45 days on probably the hardest piece has been the new video product, because it's IP-based. It's new. And we've had some glitches with audio and why that audio glitch and why the picture frame freeze up. And you've seen issues with your computer. Well, we're basically dealing with that with an IPTV product. And my staff has responded with great success. We've got it working. It's ironclad. It looks good. The internet and telephone work from the get-go with no problems. I do want to remind people, if you get a 50 megabit standard connection and you get your laptop or your cell phone out and it says 29 megabits and you're wondering why it's not 50, if you plug in a Cat5 cable to your device, you'd get 50 megabits. It's the Wi-Fi extension that doesn't give you a true 50 meg. So just put that out there right now, because I know I'm going to get calls. It said 50 and it's not 50, but boy, as soon as we plug in a laptop, there it is, 50 megabits. And it's steady, it works great. Very happy with that service. We're on a new phone system. When you call Waverly Utilities, even though you call the old phone number, it's on the new phone system. So we'll be publishing our new number here shortly. We want to advertise to people that we are a new phone company. And here's the new prefix. You can keep your existing prefix, your existing phone number, you can keep it, still be on our phone system. So through local number portability, you get to retain that. It's going great, it's on schedule, it's under budget.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments?
Just echo what Edie said. Usually when I pick up an audit, I always go to that last page to see those findings, and it's pretty impressive with a small workforce to achieve that. And then the last graph you put in the handout, I think, tells a lot. If you look at your operating expense, I know how hard you folks work at keeping that as low as you can, and you're not a whole lot higher than what you were 10 years ago. So congratulations on your efforts there. I think it's paid off, and we just have to figure out the cost of getting the energy to us. And
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Darrell. Regular business item number 2 is an update on the upper story project. Reminder that this was accomplished with block grant financing, and the chamber has been watching over that project, and we have an LLC that's been active making the whole thing happen, and I'm really happy that we're now connected. And do you have any, I know this is not the general intent of this item. I think this came from some council people.
Who aren't here?
Pardon me?
Who aren't here, so should we even?
Well, I'd like to cover,
Okay.
Because I think the public needs to,
Yep.
if there's anything we need to say on this, should be handled tonight.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I mean, the discussion I had with Intercog initially, and I've emailed you this as well, well, it was a project in the city. It was not the city's project. I know it's been out there everywhere. It was not a city project. We all understand that. But that being said, Blackhawk County was the host county for the 11-county region, so the money flowed through there. I actually had more visibility in my prior job than I do now of this project, but Intercog then orchestrated it with the Iowa Economic Development Authority and then the local development corporation that did the work on it. So some of the requests was to review the budget and the rents and everything. I don't know that we can get that documentation necessarily. Or as a city, since we've had such limited input into the project from a financial standpoint, there is no input from the city. I'm not sure what the discussion was meant to be had on this. I'm glad it's finished. I know they're waiting for some final paperwork, I believe, for occupancy to take place, which is good. It's 18 new apartments in downtown Waverly, which will hopefully be a good boost for that section of town. But as far as the paperwork and the documentation, I guess I can look to council here as part of the discussion. I mean, how much of this do we want to go into? I'm just not sure that we can get that paperwork, as it was not part of the city's overall authority, so to speak, other than a letter of support and then, the pledge of whatever it was from the CDBG grant.
Sure.
I haven't understood from the beginning what it was we were supposed to be discussing. So I mean, unless that becomes clearer to me somehow, I think city staff has more important things to be spending their time on than gathering that documentation. That's my opinion.
Just part of the update would be also from my perspective, we are very close to being able to rent out these units. Do we have any, obviously with that Big Blue being finally connected with the water system, now we're able, this is for the public here, but we're able now to do full sprinkler systems, which was a part of the requirements from the block grant, and Intercog was great leadership. It was just at the Intercog meeting, and they were rejoicing over Waverly's finally getting this project up and almost ready to go. So there's, I think, some rejoicing. Again, 18 units for the public, some income benefits here. I think because of the grant, we're able to make some in the affordable range.
I don't know what the rents are, what they're going to be. I mean, Development Corp would have all that, and I don't have that documentation.
Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily part of the discussion for tonight, but I think it's, when we're talking update, it's nice for the public to know that this is moving forward, and we can rejoice in that. Any other comments on the upper story, Carla?
I would just advise people to go to the development group's Facebook page. They can message or find out what they need to know through there.
Okay, that's a helpful note. So the public that was expecting an update, that's the update. Any last words on that? Otherwise, we'll just keep right on moving.
Just to mention, the chair of the chamber walked me through some of the apartments last week. They're really nice. They did a good job. I'm not looking for an apartment, but I wouldn't mind living in one of those.
Regular business item number 3, we'll not be able to handle. Regular business item number 4 is a discussion of the council video production and the community messages. This expires in May of 2017 for the council that's here. Anyone like to weigh in on how the conversation from before was that we were to look for this possibly within the regular budget, but we didn't make any decisions on that. Do you have any lead-in comments on this discussion?
Yes, sir. I mean, the reason that this is on is obviously it is a budget item that we'll have to take a look at. We'll have to work through during that. But the contract with Wartburg to do the actual production of it ends this fall. So as a precursor to that, we wanted to have at least some discussion as to what the funding possibilities could be, where's the interest in doing that, et cetera. So we had something to go to Wartburg with, because we would not want to contract with them if there's nothing to contract for. I know there's been various degrees of recollection of the meeting as to what was and was not said. Again, it was just to have a discussion of what was going to be going forward when the franchise fee ends in May. And Tab, I know, has some information. I don't know if he wants to elaborate a little more on that, but that's kind of what we were looking to accomplish tonight, was just a good discussion of funding.
The other part of this is that Waverly Utilities needs to know how much they're charging their customers as well. So if we are not going to have a franchise fee after that, then there'll be 3% less. So a little bit of a time crunch here. Like I said, like the boss said, the Wartburg contract is over. We were looking at doing some different things with Wartburg that might cost a little bit more money, but I think it'd be some very fine improvements, meaning project updates that they'd have their students produce, and we'd broadcast, cablecast on the access channel, instructional type videos, type stuff, short things, little snippets of things that we haven't finalized yet, but could very well improve the cable access channel immensely in terms of providing public information out. But that's the step after we find out if we have any financing or not.
So what you're describing, Tab, is then, I mean, keeping the franchise fee or maybe even increasing it and doing more and better quality, just so we get the whole picture, I have a couple of questions about what if we don't do that? What if we go down the path of what some other council members have suggested in terms of paying for that out of budget dollars? So one question I have is what kind of expense reduction, and you probably can't answer this, but Bill, I think, can, what kind of expense reduction is possible in the legal department where some of those monies also went? I mean, how much expense reduction is possible without harming the work of that department?
Well, it's legislative and legal, which means it has some things associated with the council operation and this room. But most of our budgets are personnel. So when it comes to finding $20,000 or $50,000 to reduce, you're more likely talking about personnel.
Okay. And then another question I had was, how much would we save, and Tab, you may know this, how much would we save if we used only one camera? And instead of going up on the quality, going down on the quality?
Well, we'd have to pay like one student, I think, to stand in the back of the room with a tripod. So a significant amount. I can't give you the number.
Okay.
I think it's important that if the franchise fee goes away, that it is a $50,000 decrease in
Right.
our funds, not a $20,000 like the newspaper said, because there's going to have to be some made-up funds that was in legislative and legal that we count on right now, and the other half that goes into the franchise fees, or the cable funding. That's where the 13 cents a thousand increase in taxes would be.
And on the legislative and legal documents that we got for today, did I read that correctly, that there's a little bit of a history of that budget regularly being in deficit? No? Did I read that wrong?
I believe that it is a tax-supported division, right? And just like much of the general fund operations are. So it would be more tax-supported if the franchise fees were not transferred into it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you are correct. What you're seeing is a deficit filled with taxes. So it's not a self-supporting fund by any means.
Okay.
It's definitely tax reliant.
It's like the parks. The parks get some money in, but not enough to cover their expenses.
Do we know how many people are actually, on average, watching this live?
Depends on if Monday Night Football is on or not. I really don't. We had a survey a couple years ago that gave us some numbers on how people got their information about state council, but I can't even tell you what those were.
And is there any way to know the cost of doing the live show versus the tape-delayed YouTube version of it? And I mean, I've gone out and looked at the YouTube channel, and sometimes we get 18 views a month. Sometimes we may get 100. So I'm just wondering what the cost is, and knowing some of the emails that are going back and forth between council, I think sometimes council's the one that drive the numbers up on YouTube channels. So.
One thing about YouTube, it does not cost us anything to put it on YouTube. It costs us to produce the video. So there wouldn't be any savings by not putting it on YouTube, you might say.
So the cost is truly recording it and having the production. Okay.
And that's required for any kind of live streaming as well? Is that true? Even if you're not watching it on TV, but on your computer?
Right, yes. That's all part of the same thing. And to clarify another thing, too, is we send a check to Wartburg, but Wartburg sends that to the production people and then helps pay the students and that sort of thing. It's not a check to Wartburg. It's basically to cover costs of our production. They're the ones that have the experts. They're the ones that have the students that are willing to work for free during the semesters. We pay Wartburg students during breaks and summers and those types of things. But otherwise, it's free experience that they get doing the shows that basically we don't have to pay for. So we're getting a pretty good deal, I think.
What's the practice of other cities our size?
I don't know that anymore. I looked at that like 5 years ago, and we were far ahead of communities our size regarding recording and cable casting. We could compare pretty much with the larger communities that have full-time people doing their cable casting. Iowa City, Cedar Falls, Ames, they all have actual staff. I'd have to look at that again. But I looked at the other communities in the state, approximate size, and boy, they were ranging from radio, live radio to, and have an audio thing, to having notes put up on their website, those types of things. They just weren't right up with us. 5 years later, maybe other people are doing the same thing we are or better. I don't know.
And what's the practice regarding cable franchise service fees?
Talking to the cable folks, it appears that we're in a vast minority at 3%. The most communities are at 5%, which is the max.
Are there any that don't do it and budget it, which is being
I
proposed
see.
by some?
I don't know that.
Okay.
You may come to the mic.
Have plenty of seats back on this side if you want.
But I've spent 18 of my years in my career with the cable TV companies, so I fully understand franchise fees, why they're in place, why the satellite dishes don't have to pay them, and nor should they. And I managed 54 communities in the north half of Iowa, and every single one of them collected a franchise fee. The origin of the franchise fee was the contract gave the cable an unregulated monopoly the right to build in your town, to tear up the streets, fix their cable system, whatever they needed to do. You gave them an agreement, and they paid you a franchise fee for that. Because they were a monopoly and they were unregulated, that was the city council's job to regulate them. Through the years, and the state law changed, where now you can get a statewide franchise, city councils have lost their ability to really have any regulation or control over the cable operators. But they still have the right to go out and maintain their system and dig in your streets and tear up your alleys and the citizens' rights of ways. So basically what they're doing is they're paying the city for that right to use the city streets. Satellite dishes don't use your easements or right-of-ways, so therefore there is no franchise fee or right-of-way fee. Some cities have changed it to a right-of-way fee. The law says you can collect 5% of gross. And there's certain exceptions. You can't get 5% of gross in national advertising and things of that nature. But typically most cities are between 3 and 5. You might be unique if you're the only city that doesn't charge a franchise fee to a cable operator. So that would be very unique. And I just thought I'd add that input that I've not seen a city that did not charge a franchise fee.
I think that's the fact that seems to get lost in this conversation is we're not just charging it to charge it, we're charging it to help keep our community the way it is and make sure when they go in and bury cables, do whatever, that the community is being taken care of. Yeah, you can make the argument that if I'm on my internet and I'm looking at it through my PC, why shouldn't I have to pay it? Well, maybe sooner or later the state will catch up with those type of things and change the law, but right now the law is there to help us maintain our community. And it seems, I don't know, it just seems like that piece gets lost in our conversation, that they are using the community's right of way to deliver their product. Why shouldn't they have to help maintain that right of way? And side note here, I guess we've probably spent more time on this than I thought we would, since the individuals that were not in favor of the franchise fee thought we could come up with the money very easily somewhere else. And I think with all the scrutiny we put on our budget, I don't understand where they're going to find that. So I guess I'd like to maybe pause tonight's discussion and bring them back in so they can help us understand their thoughts. And
Right, we may have come far enough. I think that for me, the discussion isn't to have over whether we're going to continue with Wartburg. I think it's a small discussion that was part of tonight, but the partnership with Wartburg has worked wonderfully, and I don't really hear a pulse for altering that. We bought all the equipment to continue to improve the production, the telecasting of this meeting. From all the feedback I'm getting, we're fairly popular. People will comment on, and it needs to be because we are public and we want to be as transparent as possible. So I don't think the issue is us versus Wartburg. No, it's us together as Wartburg, with Wartburg, and it just matter maybe where the money is going to come from, and whether we look at that franchise fee again against all the evolving discussions that have taken place.
You know, Wartburg College is just like having an engineering firm on retainer because they have the expertise. I don't have the expertise on how to make you guys look good. They do, and they've got the time and the talent and that sort of thing. So I view this as an outside contract that we would make sense to hire the most expert, talented people that we have to do this type of work.
Yeah, so I think that's a given, and it's just a matter of the money issues, and I have to be picked up another time. Any other last comments before we move on? Thank you for your input on that. We will not be able to handle the airport issue. The swimming pool issue, we cannot do that one either, but the public should know that we are looking to improve the slides, the water slides. That'll come up next week, I'm sure. We will not be able to handle the rezoning tonight. The box culverts on Fifth Avenue. No, nothing we can do there.
I do have a question about the box culvert. I mean, is this going to slow down the fact that we can't act on that? Is that going to slow down any of the work? Because, well, yeah.
The permanent stormwater easements or
Yeah.
drainage easements, yeah.
Right.
No, we have signed agreements
Okay.
with them. They're
They've already given them to us.
Okay.
Trustee will pay them.
the only,
Okay.
the only
Okay.
issue would be if we start work and then for some reason the council doesn't approve it.
Okay.
But from a timing standpoint, they're going to go to Fifth Avenue Northwest first, and they were delayed returning due to weather on other projects. So, you know, if the council will take up action next week, that'd be great. Otherwise, the work will not start until probably after July 11th. So I think we're okay.
The issue of business item number 10, that arbitrage agreement, rebate services, I think we should just postpone that. It's going to be important moving forward, but we can postpone that for lack of quorum. Regular business item number 11 is to review and discuss the parking restrictions on the downtown area and the 8th Street Southwest around Duos, which we established this about a year ago. I think what we're looking for here is a little input from the council on how to handle this. I think the staff has been grappling with this, and maybe a recommendation.
I guess from a staff standpoint, I think we'd like to see it go for another year to then take another look at it at that point, but to just continue on as it sets without any changes for now.
Okay. Any input from the council on issues that you've heard from the constituencies?
I just have a question about the reference to new upper story residential housing. To what is that referring?
That would just be, might change the parking downtown because the apartments would be full. And so just
Okay,
kind of looking forward to having more vehicles.
I see. Okay.
Kind of see how it impacts it. Does it make it more congested? Just what will that do as it currently sets? And then in a year when that's been utilized more, we can kind of determine maybe how to fix or leave, depending on what it is. And if there's additional parking opportunities. And it's just a lot of unknown at that point in time as to how that's going to impact the overall downtown parking area. So.
Yeah, I guess the only question I had was like when we went through here, you have 24-hour parking, but you really end up having 48 because they don't tag it until after the 24th hour or so. I don't know if Holly could venture an opinion on parking downtown, or put you on the spot since the chief sent you here.
It wasn't on my agenda. Yeah, I mean, we basically we respond to complaints. So we're not out hunting for parking issues downtown. If we have a complaint of somebody's in somebody else's spot, or if a vehicle has been sitting and not maintained, then we'll respond to that. And actually, once we respond, then we chalk the vehicle and then check it 48 hours from then. So even if somebody complains that the car's been sitting there for 2 days, the 48 hours starts from when we check it.
Yes. Knowing that, I guess I haven't heard any issues, complaints, feedback from the public, so I'm assuming it's a non-issue for the most part, other than some isolated ones. But.
I believe so.
Okay. I think you're hearing support for one more year. Regular business item number 12 is the language that we're trying to establish for the lost money for the local option sales and service tax. Again, for the public, this will be going before the populace on the November ballot. And then what we're grappling with tonight is just the exact wording, and we can't do it, can we? So we will not discuss that because the city clerk is saying we can't. Lack of quorum. And we cannot do mayoral appointments for the lack of quorum.
Is it possible for the proposed mayoral appointments to attend their respective commission meetings as guests, just so that they can get going?
Good thought.
Or open meetings, so absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think if we pass them next week, we'll cover.
Well, there's a special P&Z meeting
Cable
this
and
week.
P&Z, yeah.
Like I said, I think
it's
you
a
can.
It's a work study, it's a work session for P and Z this week, so anybody's free to come join in.
But thank you, Councilman. I think that, yeah. We have some sort of less than official status there. Can we receive these reports? Probably not. Not. Okay. So we will move to council comments, or well, let's start with staff comments. Any staff comments?
I don't have any, sir, unless staff has anything they want to address. Looks like we're okay.
Okay. City council comments, this side, B.
I don't have any, thank you.
Thank you. Mike or Dan?
No, Mayor.
Mr. Bile?
I have none at this time.
Okay. And no mayoral comments. Communications,
Don't have any.
we don't need a motion to adjourn since we didn't officially meet.